Here online, we have a saying, the internet never forgets. It basically means that, should you choose to post something, be sure that you wouldn't regret that decision if you want to delete it later, as archives and re-uploads can easily be produced and spread. But that's all it is, a saying. The truth of the matter is, unless the video you post is inherently funny or gets a lot of attention, chances are the few people that see your regrettable or embarrassing creations probably won't bother to preserve them. This channel you're watching right now has well over 500 videos, and yet only about 1/5 of them are available today, with most of them privated and some others being completely lost to time. Now, I'm not encouraging you to post things you'll regret, merely acknowledging that many things can be scrubbed off the internet so long as they don't spread far, leaving them in the same vein as my old videos. Gone. But rarely ever is that actually a good thing. Time and time again, we see cases of highly sought after advertisements, movies, TV shows, and songs going missing, seemingly without a trace. This is, of course, the phenomenon of lost media. While there was always an amount of interest surrounding lost media, whether it's the incredible stories of discovery or just the rumors and speculation as to what can be out there, the obsession has only grown more widespread with the advent of the internet, opening the floodgates and expanding search efforts worldwide. Gen Z is the first generation to have grown up with all the knowledge on Earth at their fingertips. At this point, it's normal for everything someone's ever experienced to be saved on a hard drive or server somewhere. And that makes it fascinating to hear of stories from a time when this wasn't the case. Historically, we've always valued the preservation of our past. Historical knowledge is the foundation needed for society to progress. When you think of people from far in the past, you may think of them as lesser or dumber. But the difference isn't in intelligence, it's the accessibility of knowledge and the ease of access to education. Without the building blocks of the past, progress is replaced with relearning and rediscovering things we already did. The reason we might want to keep old media is the same reason why we have museums and libraries, to keep that information around. And that's what makes the story of the Library of Alexandria such a tragic case. The Library of Alexandria was once one of the greatest collections of texts in the ancient world. At its peak, it's estimated to have been the home of anywhere from 40,000 to 400,000 different scrolls, including the works of some of the greatest philosophers of the ancient world, with the city itself being touted as the capital of knowledge and learning because of it. But over time, the library began to deteriorate. In 48 BCE, Julius Caesar was cut off by a fleet of Egyptian boats in the Alexandria harbor. To escape, he ordered his men to burn the boats down, which did work, but the fire spread to the city, and a part of the library was burned. Another 10% of its contents would be lost sometime between 300 and 400 years later, when the patriarch at the time, Theophilus, would transform the Temple of Serapis into a church, the temple containing a percentage of the scrolls from the library, and those scrolls were disposed of. Then, another 200 years later, the city was under Muslim control, and the remaining contents of the library were burned and used to warm the city's bathhouses, with the logic that the knowledge held in the library either went against scripture or was already common knowledge. In the span of 600 years, the once great library was no more, with very little remnants being around today. Some say the loss of the library held humanity back 1,000 years. And while it wasn't that cataclysmic, as there were other similarly sized libraries even back then, it's undoubtable that it made finding the information gathered there a lot more tedious to find. That's something you'll notice about many modern cases of lost media. Often the missing media is an alternative or other version of something already available. Le Voyage dans la Lune, or A Trip to the Moon, is widely regarded as the very first science fiction film, and is one of the most influential films in cinematic history. Well, in 1993, an in-color version of the film, which was painstakingly hand-painted, was found badly damaged in a Spanish film archive in Barcelona. Note that other black and white versions of the film were already available. The find was simply a massive help to the colorization and restoration effort. And just like A Trip to the Moon, there are other variations of a lot of the text within the library. So while it didn't hold humanity back a millennium, it probably did make finding certain writings more difficult. In the thousands of years since, we now have our own Library of Alexandria that can hopefully avoid the same fate, taking the form of preservation projects like archive.org, a website home to hundreds of thousands of preserved books, songs, games, films, and websites. But even when casting such a wide net, even more media is lost now than ever. And that's simply because there's more media being made than ever. As the means to access film producing technology opens up to more and more people, it only makes sense that more and more will be lost in the endless stream of information that is the internet. Things go missing all the time. The $1 Million Homepage was a project started in 2005 by a broke university student named Alex 2 to pay off his student loan. For a minimum of $100 per 100 pixels, companies and individuals were able to purchase advertising on the website, with a canvas of 1 million total pixels. It was the predecessor to events like r/place, that would use the same 1 pixel at a time gimmick years later. But here's the thing. If you go to the $1 Million Homepage today, you'll find that it's a husk of its former self. Clicking on the site's link today, you'll see many of them result in a blank page or 404 screen, with other sites being bought out by people years later and being used as a redirect to other projects. The most valuable ad on the page, with 10,800 pixels, is for a site called pixellance.com, a link which now redirects you to a purchase link for the domain. While the homepage itself is still around today as an internet artifact, the other tabs on the website now just lead to an error 404. All in all, over 40% of the links on the site return with nothing, suffering from link rot, which is when the people hosting the site stop holding on to the domain. The $1 Million Homepage is an excellent look at what the internet was like in 2005, and the fate of the website shows exactly what's happening with the older internet at large. Back in the day, people used to make their own websites, blogs, where they would write about their thoughts and share them with the world. Today, we have Facebook and Twitter. The deterioration of the $1 Million Homepage reflects the death of old internet culture, leaving the websites of the past rotting away. However, there is something that can be done about this, once again thanks to archive.org. Specifically, the Wayback Machine. It's a tool that allows you to put in a link and view the entire history of a domain, so long as it was archived. And when putting in the sites linked from the homepage, you can see what they were originally used for. But it isn't perfect, especially when you access an archived site from over a decade ago. Some things just don't load properly, so without a time machine, some of these sites are as good as gone. The same year as the $1 Million Homepage, the earliest known image of Jeff the Killer was posted to a Japanese site called FileMan, with the caption, "A celebrity before plastic surgery." However, people in the thread allude to seeing the image earlier. While the original creepypasta is known for being really bad, attached to it is a very peculiar image. Finding the original image of Jeff the Killer has to be one of the most high-profile lost media searches to date. And even having an $11,401 bounty thanks to some ordinary gamers in Scare Theater. The main challenge in getting to the bottom of the case is the sheer number of conflicting stories by various people. In an interview with Scare Theater, the creator of Jeff the Killer lies about the image associated with the story, claiming to have designed the photo himself. There's another claim of the subject being taken from 4chan, being an alleged photo of a woman named Katie Robinson. However, Katie doesn't exist. This woman's real name is Heather, and the rumor is false. Currently, the search is in a really good place. Photos of a Japanese woman named Mariko were found floating around at a similar time as the Jeff photo. And with similarities in facial shape, she can potentially be the subject of the Jeff the Killer image. However, even if that is true, the search was always for the original unedited image, which is yet to be found. Nonetheless, a very interesting turn for a story that seems to be close to a conclusion. But all this time I've been talking about lost media, what about the cases where a search was never started in the first place? PetitTube is a website that randomly provides you obscure videos with little to no views. It may seem strange, as these sorts of videos are rarely ever suggested to people on the platform, but this is actually the silent majority of videos on YouTube. Personal memories, old streams, and the many, many people over the years who have at one point tried to be successful on this platform, but ended up failing one way or another, with no one ever being aware of their personal struggles outside of those who knew them. Every minute, 2,500 new videos are uploaded to YouTube, and chances are the vast majority of that content will never be seen by a wide audience. What's the difference between a 0-view YouTube video and a piece of lost media? The difference comes in its demands. While you might think the media on Earth pie chart might be something like this, it's actually closer to this. Lost media is a label we give to things we know, or at least think exist. We don't even know if the majority of lost media has ever existed, with it being so lost that no one's looking for it, because we don't know what to look for. And some of the most interesting cases of lost media are exactly that, when the media isn't lost at all, because it never existed. Even though it's the most direct viewpoint to our pasts, human memory is surprisingly malleable. Of course, everyone knows about the Mandela effect at this point, where small aspects of things you've grown up with were misremembered en masse as other, similar things. Spellings and small character details seeming to be the most prominent. But misremembering can go far deeper. In a 2002 study, over the course of 3 interviews per subject, researchers showed 20 different subjects pictures of childhood memories and asked them to describe everything they remembered. And mixed in with all the real ones, there was a doctored childhood photograph of the subject in a hot air balloon. And by the 3rd interview, people were guessing the fake memory wrong about 50% of the time. Some even coming up with added details for a memory that never actually existed. Not to mention, children are creative. They can come up with all sorts of wild things, with varying levels of truth. And sometimes, if something happened so long ago, it may be misremembered as something that really happened. Hitogata, roughly translating to humanoid, was the name given to an alleged advertisement or train PSA from the mid-90s to early 2000s, which is most well known for how little is actually known of it. Despite many claiming to have witnessed it in childhood, accounts differ greatly. The only consistently agreed attribute is that it contains a scene of 2 figures appearing and disappearing, with the recurring sound of a railroad crossing playing in the background. But from there, accounts differ. Some believe there's a railroad in the background, some don't. Some believe text appears on screen, some don't. Some believe there was narration, some don't. The leading theory is that Hitogata isn't just one ad, but instead the conglomeration of a bunch of different ads with similar elements being merged together through memories, explaining why it's so different from person to person. But there's, at very least, a minuscule possibility that Hitogata is actually out there somewhere, which is more than what can be said about a quote, evil farming game. It all started in April of 2016, when a Reddit user named Sparta213 made a post trying to track down the game on r/tipofmyjoystick, a subreddit with the goal of helping people rediscover lost games of their own. He describes the game as Harvest Moon with a dark twist. The game starts out with you and your wife. One night you get into a fight and you end up stabbing her to death. Now the game revolves around you farming to stay alive, trying to keep the town from finding out about the incident that happened. Every now and then the cops come to search your house, and you have to hide her corpse. The post would garner a fair bit of attention, but while there was some attempts to find it, the search died down rather quickly. That was until December of 2018, when user David Spade AMA would go onto the exact same subreddit and describe the exact same thing. He goes more in depth, specifying intricate details. There was a fishing minigame, and I specifically remember fishing up evidence of your wife's murder, and then you pass out. Another would be posted 12 days later, claiming they might have had the game on an old laptop. But that sadly didn't go anywhere. That was 3 people, 3 completely different individuals coming forward about this lost 2000s farming game. The case would gain far more traction when brought up by several YouTubers, Nexpo and Justin Wang to name a few. Shining a spotlight brought many more people to join the search, with everyone's collective efforts culminating in 2021, roughly 5 years after the original post. But it wasn't a game. As confirmed by the original poster, Sparta 213, the game had never existed, only appearing in a dream Sparta had while watching a Vinesauce stream, where Joel discusses a hypothetical game idea.
Yeah, that'd be a fun game, just playing as Harvest Moon, but throughout all of the gameplay, you gotta hide a dead corpse. Midway in the game, you have an argument with your wife, and you accidentally kill her. Manage your farm, you know, raise your chickens and milk the cows. You also gotta, like, hide the body from the cops sometimes.
With that being said, though, the story has inspired some to work on games inspired by this premise. So the search wasn't a complete waste, and at least sought some sort of closure for those involved, however underwhelming it may be. So why do we have this fascination with lost media? And why do so many people choose to spend their time on these searches that could very well result in nothing? The preservation of knowledge is unarguably important. It can be the thrill of the hunt, or the fun of the adventure, but I think it goes far deeper than just preserving knowledge. People put their heart and soul into the arts, and when imagining the amount of people's art that's been lost to time, it can be genuinely distressing. Imagine pouring your life's work into a project, only for it to never be seen by anyone. For it to be so underappreciated that nobody bothered to keep it. The search for lost media helps to remedy this, looking for the things no one else bothered to keep. Or perhaps, we choose to focus on lost media to help others do what we cannot. And by attaching ourselves to finding rare and missing ads, movies, and TV airings, we too will be able to avoid the inevitable. Spending our free time preserving media because we can't preserve ourselves. At one moment or another, we will all become lost. Well, not completely. There's a reason we still remember the Library of Alexandria, or George Méliès's films, or even the $1 Million homepage. It's because these ideas and stories are passed down to today. Art has this captivating ability to bring people together, but also to inspire others to make art of their own, even when the original art piece may not even exist. My old videos may be gone, but the experience gained from them carries over to today. When media becomes lost, the ideas associated with it might still continue on in the people that have seen it, and by making art of your own, it may inspire others to keep moving things forward. We just have to hope that it doesn't become lost media.